Outlander, the acclaimed series of novels by Diana Gabaldon, is filled with characters who have complex and fascinating backstories. One of the most notable is James Alexander Malcolm MacKenzie Fraser, known as Jamie Fraser. For many, Jamie is the epitome of the romantic hero, a strong, charismatic, and passionate Scottish warrior. However, Jamie Fraser's story is much deeper and more tragic than one might think. In this narration, I will take you through his life before he met Claire Beauchamp, exploring in detail the events and experiences that shaped him into the man he would become. James Alexander Malcolm MacKenzie Fraser was born on the estate of Broch Tuarach, better known as Lallybroch in the Scottish Highlands. His parents, Brian Fraser and Ellen MacKenzie, came from prominent families within the Fraser and MacKenzie clans, giving Jamie a noble lineage. Jamie was the third child in the family, with an older sister, Jenny, and a brother named Willie, who died when Jamie was just a child. Willie's death, caused by a devastating case of smallpox, deeply affected the family and left Jamie as the sole heir to their lands. From a young age, Jamie grew up surrounded by stories of honor, duty, and the legacy of his clan. His father, Brian, was a man of principles, known for his firm yet fair character. Unlike other leaders of his time, Brian instilled in Jamie and Jenny the value of compassion, loyalty, and hard work. Ellen MacKenzie, Jamie's mother, was the daughter of the chief of Clan MacKenzie of Leoch. She was known for her beauty and free spirit, an independent woman who defied the norms of her time. Her father had planned a strategic marriage for her with Malcolm Grant, the leader of Clan Grant, to strengthen alliances between the clans. However, Ellen had other plans. In a bold move that shocked everyone, she rejected Malcolm Grant, offending him in the process, and fled from Leoch to marry Brian Fraser for love. Brian Fraser, an honest, brave man with strong principles, was the leader of Lallybroch, a prosperous yet humble estate compared to the vast lands of the Mackenzies. Despite its size, Lallybroch was a haven for Ellen, who found in Brian not just a husband, but an equal. Their marriage was not merely a political union. It was a rebellion against expectations and an act of true love. Jamie's parents taught him from an early age that love, honor, and loyalty should not be secondary to political intrigue. This lesson would guide many of Jamie's decisions later in life. 2 years after the death of Willie, the eldest son, Ellen died while giving birth to her third child, who also died during childbirth. This forced Jenny to take on the responsibility of running Lallybroch from that moment on. Jamie grew up under his father's guidance, learning from a young age to manage the responsibilities he would someday inherit. Lallybroch was a relatively small estate, but it was prosperous, consisting of around 60 tenant farms and a small village called Broch Mordha. Jamie learned to love his home, its people, and the fields that surrounded it. However, not everything in Jamie's childhood was peaceful. The politics of the clans and tensions with the English were always looming, and these concerns would weigh on him much sooner than anyone could have expected. At the age of 14, Jamie was sent to Beannacht, the home of his uncle Dougal MacKenzie, who was left-handed like Jamie, and taught him to handle a sword with both hands. Jamie already had some knowledge, as Ian's father, John Murray, had taught him to fight with his left hand when he was young. Dougal, being an experienced warrior with a strict code of conduct, subjected Jamie to a rigorous training regimen to ensure he could defend himself and serve the interests of Clan MacKenzie. At 16, Jamie lived for a year at Castle Leoch, the main seat of Clan MacKenzie. This happened after his mother passed away, and his father, Brian Fraser, decided to send him to Leoch to be under the supervision of his uncles, Colum and Dougal MacKenzie, who were the leaders of Clan MacKenzie. The decision to send him to Leoch was not only to protect Jamie, but also to strengthen the ties between the Frasers and the Mackenzies. During his stay at Castle Leoch, Jamie learned a great deal about clan politics and family dynamics. He had tutors for French, German, mathematics, and other subjects, and every afternoon he played chess with Colum. At 18, he was sent to Paris to study at the university. During this time, he lived with his cousin Jared Fraser and met his first love, Anneliese de Marillac. She had many suitors and flirted with them all, but she went on several dates with Charles Gaulois, which infuriated Jamie. One night, Jamie saw them kissing, and driven by jealousy, he challenged Charles to a duel, which was illegal in Paris. They met in the Bois de Boulogne, with Anneliese witnessing the duel. Charles chose swords. Jamie faced quite a few challenges in the duel. He had to fight with his right hand. His hair came loose, and he couldn't see his opponent clearly. Nevertheless, he managed to wound Charles and claimed victory. However, Jamie was devastated when Anneliese, instead of running to him, went to help Charles. A month later, they got married, and Jamie returned to Scotland with a broken heart, contemplating becoming a monk. Upon his return to Lallybroch, his life took a drastic turn that would push him to the limits of his physical and emotional endurance. It all happened one morning. While Jamie was working on the estate, he heard screams coming from inside the house. He quickly dropped what he was doing, fearing his sister was in danger, and he was not mistaken. Lallybroch had been invaded by English soldiers who were searching his family under suspicion of rebellious activities against the British Crown. When Jamie tried to confront Jack Randall, the officer in charge of the operation, Randall took his sister hostage and offered to pardon Jamie in exchange for sleeping with him. Jamie pleaded with his sister not to accept, but after punching Randall in the groin, she allowed herself to be taken away by him. Randall, in turn, ordered his soldiers to arrest Jamie on false charges of treason. Jamie resisted arrest, trying to defend his home and family, but this resistance was not well received by Randall, who saw Jamie as a direct challenge to his authority. He ordered Jamie to be taken to Fort William, where he would personally decide his punishment. This fort was known for being a place of British control, and Randall's reputation there was feared. During his imprisonment, Jamie attempted to escape, but the English discovered him and sentenced him to receive 100 lashes on his back. Jamie's first flogging was brutal and humiliating. Tied to a post in the center of the fort, Jamie was whipped with a lash, while Randall watched, clearly enjoying the torture. Jamie, showing an uncommon level of physical and mental endurance for someone his age, refused to scream or show pain, maintaining his composure as much as possible. But Randall did not stop there. He wanted to break Jamie not only physically but emotionally as well. He ordered another 100 lashes for stealing food before his escape attempt, a punishment carried out a week later when a doctor determined he was not in mortal danger. Randall's brutality had no limits. During the second whipping, Brian Fraser, Jamie's father, witnessed the cruel punishment inflicted on his son. The pain was so intense that Jamie lost consciousness, and his father, believing his son had died, suffered a stroke and died right there. While recovering from his second flogging, some friends broke into the fort and helped him escape. But during the process, an English sergeant was killed, so the authorities accused Jamie of murder and put a price of £10 on his head. After his rescue, Jamie went to France to join his best friend, Ian Murray, as a mercenary in the French army, where he remained for 2 years and learned more about combat and military strategy. Returning to Scotland, Jamie wandered the rural areas with a gang of outcast men for 6 months, stealing cattle and living off the hospitality of the Highlands, until one day, someone hit him on the back of the head with an axe, and his uncle Dougal sent him to recover at the abbey in France, where his uncle Alexander Fraser was the abbot. There, Jamie found a temporary refuge among the monks, who cared for him while he healed from his physical wounds. Upon his return to Scotland, Jamie could not go directly back to Lallybroch. Being a man with a bounty on his head forced him to stay in the shadows. He spent a long time living as a segregated man, without a clan, and had to resort to cattle rustling to survive. This life led him to live in the forests and mountains of the Highlands, always on the move, always fleeing from the British soldiers who were after him. When he returned to Scotland, he was welcomed by his godfather Murtagh, his uncle Dougal, and a group of men from Clan MacKenzie. While trying to steal cattle near Inverness, they encountered an English patrol led by Captain Randall, and a confrontation ensued. In the process, Jamie was shot and his shoulder was dislocated. And the rest is history.